In last week's episode, in spite of broken chains, flat tires, and tough trails, we made it to Pomeroy and Maggie's garden. The next morning after a great breakfast, Robert, Chris, and I started towards the Washington-Idaho border. Today would be our last day with Chris, who had to head home from Lewiston. It was another windy day as we followed the path of Lewis and Clark on a long climb up to the Alpoa Pass. The weather was otherwise perfect as we descended down to the Snake River, following it to Clarkston and across the state line to Lewiston, Idaho. There we immediately went to Follett's Mountain Sports for more spare tubes and to get the chain on Robert's bike replaced. To our surprise, Robert's bike needed more than a chain. Apparently, rust in his frame had gotten into his bottom bracket, the part of his bike that turns when he pedals, and had ruined it. The looseness there was probably what had caused his chain to flex and break. Fortunately, the mechanics at Follett's saw the problem and were able to fix it fairly quickly.
Anyway.
You guys saved my life.
We do what we can with what we've got to work with.
Well, and I appreciate it. You guys found rust where I thought there was none. I found a ruined bottom bracket that I thought was just fine.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Maintenance after the rain.
Yeah.
Robert, Chris, and I enjoyed one last lunch together, and then Chris went to rent a car, and Robert and I continued east. It had been great riding with Chris, and we knew that we would miss him. After a series of quiet roads, Robert and I found ourselves on a nice rolling gravel road, passing through fields.
That's the real top.
Then we had a little downhill. At the bottom of the downhill, we rode across a bridge that was closed, but not to bicycles, to a road that was closed, but not to bicycles. And then we got on Highway 12, which was obviously not closed. We took Highway 12, whose shoulder kind of came and went a lot, for almost 30 miles, finally getting to Orofino in the late afternoon. We quickly checked into our hotel and went out to dinner. I had chicken fried steak, again, something I don't normally eat. Yum. The next morning, we left early to beat the traffic and construction on Highway 12. Of course, the construction was already there, and the logging trucks weren't far behind. But soon, we were in Kamea, where we stopped for breakfast, and then Kusha, and then we entered the Nez Perce Forest. Since this road has almost no towns for 100 miles, it was a little more quiet.
Here we are, about 6 miles from the end of today. Gorgeous scenery.
Riding alongside a river.
Yeah.
There were a lot of cars earlier, but right now the road seems a whole lot quieter.
Yeah.
And it's offering some shade.
Yeah.
We left early enough so the sun's not a big deal.
Left so early we may have a hard time checking into the hotel.
So we're smelling the barn.
So we're going to get her done. See you soon.
We continued on uphill with a tailwind, and were soon in our cabin at Three Rivers Resort. We were forced to eat something from the store since the restaurant was closed due to lack of staffing. We did our laundry by hand, and then we watched the Snake River flow by.
It is kind of hypnotic to just stand here and look out through the window and watch the river flow.
The next morning, we were at it again.
So what's today like?
One road, US 12. Hopefully we're leaving early enough to avoid all the traffic, and the day is nice and cool, and we'll be riding along the river for the most part until we start climbing.
How long is it?
It is 85 miles.
Since the restaurant was closed and we were starting early again the next day, we had gotten some things the day before for breakfast that morning, with the goal of stopping for a real lunch at Loxa Lodge, which was 65 miles and 3,000 feet of climbing away. Since we had so far to go, we would ride together for a bit, and then I would speed up ahead for a few miles while we rode along and enjoyed the view and listened to music on our headphones, but only with one ear, of course. Eventually, Robert would catch up, and then we would rinse and repeat. There were a few bridges that crossed the river to homes on the other side, and even some personal ferries or funiculars for people who lived over there. Apparently, there was a wedding going on somewhere, hopefully a more picturesque location than this vault toilet.
These orange sticks are how snowplows know where the edge of the road is. Morning.
There were a lot of rafters out there, too.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Oh, great.
Have a good ride.
All right, y'all have a good time rafting today.
The further we went, the more narrow the river became, and the more rapids it had. So we knew that we were slowly getting closer to the top and to our lunch. Unfortunately, I had a scary experience with a truck that did not go over as it passed me and my bike in a section involving a guardrail and no shoulder. It was a totally unnecessary experience as the lane in the opposite side of the road was completely empty. It left me shaken, but thankfully it left me unscathed. That experience, along with the approaching rainstorms, convinced me that a ride over the top of the pass might be a good idea. A local gentleman, Jesse, loaded up my bike, drove me over the top, and dropped me at the Lolo Hot Spring Resort. Robert continued on his way. Eventually wet, but not lightning struck, thankfully, Robert made it to the Lolo Resort. What can we say about this resort? Well, the springs were nice, and I had a good bowl of soup. As for the rest, let's leave that until our next episode.